Good afternoon.
Here we are for our Wednesday live stream. We are Dave and Laura Butler, and we select topics, either ones we design and come up with based on our 30 years of various conversations we've had with each other and with clients. But we provide individual and customized team organizational support for improving communications, development of leaders. And what we're going to be talking about today is one of our favorite topics. So we get
Feedback.
is feedback. So the real, and I think there's a lot we can unpack this title. There's a lot.
Lots of feedback on feedback.
Yeah, but the freedom of it's such a uplifting experience, even if you're getting constructive criticism as feedback, or you're getting feedback around nailing it, hitting it out of the park. But why is it so difficult for us to receive it? But tell the backstory of why we chose this topic for today.
Well, one of the things that set it off was we had some work done recently with an electrician that we've used before. And he had a couple of workers here who did the work. And after they left, we both looked at it and said, that doesn't look right. And I sent him an email, and he sent back an email. I wish I had it in front of me. It was something like, "Thank you so much for letting me know about it." Like, I would hope that people would let people know about what was going on. But he was actually openly, enthusiastically happy and thankful that we gave him the feedback. And then he came back today and corrected a couple things, and it looks fine now, and everything's great. But that ability to not only invite the feedback, but to say thank you for the feedback,
and act on it.
Yeah, and do something about it. I mean, it's tremendous. And in the end, we call it the freedom of feedback, because there's a freedom that goes along with getting it all out on the table, getting things cleared up, getting things corrected, getting clear lines of demarcation between who's responsible for what and what's going on with who. I mean, it's a wonderful feeling of freedom to be able to say, I took care of that.
Right.
And we talked to him about how we felt about it. He walked out of here with a big smile on his face as a contractor and said, I'm so happy because you're one of my best customers.
Well, the other thing he said is that he doesn't do any marketing at all because he relies on the relationships with his customers.
Sure.
So there's no need. And how many of us, whether we're internal or external, rely on our colleagues, our other peers to move to the next step. And we often hear the phrase that feedback is a gift. And I've seen people, yeah. Well, it is. It really is. Because not only is it, but we'll get into the giving and the getting, but I think it's why is it so difficult is because we're complicated people. We haven't grown up with the practice of this.
Yeah, open feedback and openly asking for feedback. And there was a coaching person I was working with a little while ago, and I asked, have you gotten any feedback from anybody? And he said no. And I said, well, did you ask for any? And he said no. Well, how's anybody going to operate? To talk about no freedom, I wouldn't know what to do next if I didn't get some feedback, or I didn't even ask for it.
Well, it leads us to the next. We broke this down today into the why, the W's.
The 5 W's. The famous 5 W's.
Famous. So the first one is, why is direction and guidance crucial? Well, to your example of the person who didn't get any feedback at all, they're kind of swimming out there in the abyss, not knowing if they're on track, if they're, they need to improve.
I think what it leads to people hiding, because if I don't know what to do and I haven't gotten any feedback, I'm not sure which way to go. I'm going to start hiding and just try and get by the best I can, rather than openly reaching out and saying, could you give me some feedback on this? I'd like to know how things are going.
reminds me of one of our favorite books is an Everyone Culture. And they talk about DDOs, which are developmentally deliberate organizations. And
Right.
what their findings were is that 50% of people in organizations are hiding. And what that means is they're hiding from their job or their responsibilities because they haven't been celebrated or they don't know. It's like they haven't received the direction or the guidance.
Right. Right.
So what is that doing to you want to talk about ROI? You know?
Well, the example that I gave, we gave in our little write-up was going to the moon and back.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine going to the moon and back and not having some connection with Mission Central. I mean, you don't have any idea where you are. Or, I like using the example of an airplane, driving an airplane. Well, you need to know your airspeed and your altitude, and you need to know how much weight you're carrying. I mean, all these things are feedback loops that tell you where you are in the trip.
Metrics.
If you don't get any feedback, you don't know where you are.
Yeah, it's. I mean, you might get to the moon, but you might not get back.
So why is it so difficult? That's our question.
Right.
Well, one of the reasons is because we're sensitive people. We're worried about whether or not people like us, and we worry whether or not we're doing a good job, and if I'm going to get fired or I'm going to get the promotion or whatever it is that I'm doing. And that sensitivity, as well as what you brought up earlier, the lack of experience with it. We just don't have any real practice at it, starting with school. We get a little bit of feedback because I get a C instead of a B on my paper, but there's not really a whole lot of feedback necessarily in that process. Usually feedback is got some negative cast to it. Now, feedback can be just as positive as it can be negative.
Mm-hmm. Right. So we can move on. One thing you reminded me of is I was in ninth grade and I wrote a paper. It was one of my favorite English projects that we ever did. And it was writing a response to Barbra Streisand's People. And what I look forward to from this teacher is she always put extensive marginal notes on things you do to improve. And I respected that. I embraced it. And I mean, of course you want to have the better grade, but it was really more about how can I learn? What can I learn? And when we get back to that DDO, those DDO organizations and Everyone Culture, it's all about being a learning organization.
Right. Yeah, and I can't learn if I don't get any feedback.
So
I don't know what to do more of. I don't know what to do less of.
Right. The next W, who? Who do we get feedback from, and who do we give it to?
Well, everybody's different. It could be a colleague, could be a customer, maybe a client, might be my boss, might be somebody that reports to me. It could be a potential client. It could be somebody that I work with or I live with. So the who is probably never ending, but depending on the who, sometimes we have to focus in on the what, because what kind of feedback that we give to each other sometimes has to do with what our relationship is about. And if we don't have a solid relationship with each other, we don't usually have the ability to be as open and honest as we want to be. But as the relationship grows, so does our openness and our honesty, and we have better feedback. I like to say I could probably tell the quality and the success of any organization by just walking around and getting a feel for how much feedback they give each other.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and when we do our coaching, whether one-on-one or group, one of the first things I ask is, are we is the cadence okay? Do you need some clarification on this document or that document? Mm-hmm. Because otherwise we're to the moon with no guidance. So it's important to learn that it's a two-way street.
Yeah.
The question I have, for people who may be listening live or listening to the recording is, who do you get feedback from?
And who are you willing to give it to?
Exactly. Who do you give it to? So make a note in the comments. We'd love to hear. I
get a lot of feedback from Laura, and I don't even have to ask for it, so that's great.
No, fasten your seatbelt. So what do you get feedback on?
Yeah, this I think is one of the crucial questions to ask, because a lot of times people think, well, feedback, okay, what do you think? How am I doing? Well, okay, I don't know that I'm going to get much from that, but if I say, if I can be more specific and say, how am I doing on the project? That's one step further. But an even better step further would be, how do you think my communications are going with the project that I'm on?
Be more specific.
Be as specific as possible. What do you want to get feedback on? Is it just a general feeling of, do you like me, or do you think I'm doing okay? Well, that's not really feedback. That's sort of general checking in, I suppose. What to
Well,
get feedback on is I'll ask you right now. Can you hear me better? I'm wearing my new headset microphone. Is that better? Can you hear me better?
absolutely.
Well, that's what to get feedback on. I didn't say, am I communicating better? Am I
Right.
communicating better?
Well, it sets up, I mean, you can set this up by clear expectations
Yeah.
of what each other or the team, what are we doing? What do we expect as leaders of the team? And what can the team expect of us as leaders?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So again, we are Dave and Laura Butler of Work Life Performance. If you're listening, Work Life Consulting, I went back to the old one. Work Life Consulting. And if you're listening on the recording, we're happy to have you here. We provide individual, team, and organizational support for communication team dynamics. So let's move to the when. When is it appropriate?
This is always a good one. It's amazing how important this is, because sometimes you try and give or get feedback from someone and it's not the right time. Well, what would be not a right time? Maybe in front of other people that I feel sensitive about. I may be able to be direct with you or listen to your direct feedback, but when it's in front of other people, I feel like I'm put on the spot. So when is an important thing? Is it at the beginning? Is it at the end of the day? Is it, try and read the room? Is this a time that somebody can really listen to what I have to say or not? Is this sometime when we're in the middle of trying to figure out where we're going, and all of a sudden you're giving me feedback? I don't even know how to hear it. So setting up a good time is always useful. So negative feedback, sometimes the constructive stuff is better one-on-one. Where a group or individual or with a group, is there something we can discuss openly? We have a great process that we've been successful with called the Living 360. We put flip charts on the wall, and everybody goes around everybody else's flip chart and answers the question, what do I want more of from you? And what do I want less of from you? Interesting questions. And they're not qualitative. You're not asking me how well I'm doing anything. The question is, what do you want more of? What do you want less of?
Right. Yeah, it's pretty amazing, the results that come out of that. And you can filter that into maybe a team charter or other documents that could be organic. So I think those are our 5 W's. Any closing comments?
Well, I think the closing comment I would have is to realize that it really is a gift to give and to get. If I'm willing to take the time to really give you essential feedback, I must have either some skin in the game. You're important to me. I care about you. I want to let you know that you should take care of yourself better, or whatever it is. There's a certain amount of love and respect that goes along with giving good feedback.
Exactly.
So,
yep, and practice. So we are on the bottom is our website. Please take a look. Also, we're going to close out with our wonderful friend Elliot Lewis, his music that really, I think, rings true for every one of these live streams, which is we're in this together. So we'll see you next week for another discussion. And if there's anything you'd like to hear, please let us know.
So let's go give each other some feedback.
That's right.